Welcome to the Pedal Collaborative podcast. We're so glad you're here. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode. I am your host Alan with my good friend Paul, and we are so glad to be here in your ears one more week.
Yes, welcome back to another week of the Pedal Collaborative. We're excited to talk with you all again. Spooky season is upon us, as we're now in October, my favorite time of the year, favorite month of the year. Leaves are falling, so is a lot of rain, so that's really been not ideal for my mental health starting the month, but, you know.
Yeah, it's been cold, it's been wet, it's been chilly, but, pumpkin spice is out, and here we go.
I've had quite a few pumpkin spice lattes already, actually.
I'm probably sick of them. I'm just sick of it already. And it's just October.
Yeah. I feel like October. I might get there. But I go really, really hard and aggressively into all things pumpkin. And it's like, I'm fond of saying there are no guilty pleasures, just pleasures.
Oh, I like that.
So when I like pumpkin things, I'm very basic in that way. And I'm freely admitting it. So there we go.
So one of the things I like about this pumpkin and this season is, and you may be about to start talking about this, but it is Halloween flavored pedals and pedal art.
That's exactly what I was going to start talking about. You beat me to the punch. Yes.
Man.
So yes, I by the time this episode is out, I'll probably have a few posts of my all black spooky board. Mm-hmm. And fingers crossed that there's some new ones on the way. I know at least Walrus Audio teased something with their end of September. They teased the years so far they've done of the Iron Horse.
Yeah.
Spooky one, and they said something new to come. So I've been waiting for that patiently.
Yep.
Black and orange pedals, purple pedals, everything. All the lights, and my whole house is decorated too.
That's great.
The black pedals just fit in perfectly.
That's fun.
So
that's super fun.
Yeah, it's it has always been my favorite holiday. This is apropos of nothing related to pedals, but I had this realization the other day. I was talking with a friend who's also a big Halloween fan, and I was realizing Halloween is one of the only holidays, and you can correct me, and maybe there's one I'm missing, but it's a fully communal holiday. People come to your house to get candy. It's not just like a family thing or Valentine's Day. It's just you and your partner thing. It is people come to your house and you hand out candy and you get to kind of be fully immersed in your neighborhood or community if you live in a neighborhood or community like that. And I think that's something I've always liked about it is it's like everybody's celebrating.
Yeah.
It's not just you celebrating.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other ones, and no, I think you might be right.
Yeah, St. Patrick's Day is kind of the closest, but it's technically only for Irish people, but everybody celebrates that weekend, but it's not really the same thing where people come to your house and you hand out candy and have a little joyous moment. So
Right. Although in my neighborhood, it's one of those, everybody kind of lives really close together, and we're kind of in the middle of farmland. And so a lot of the people around us from neighboring houses come to our neighborhood to trick or treat for their kids. And the adults have kind of wised up, and so they have adult beverages at the houses. So you'll have the boozy tent, at the one neighbor's house, and so it's borderline St. Patty's Day at my neighborhood at the end of a Halloween night.
And that's communal.
That's right.
I love it.
That's right.
I love Halloween. Let's watch this segue here.
I'm ready.
Speaking of community, wanted to just we've had quite a few new patrons recently on our Patreon account.
Yes.
And it's been fun to just interact with more of you. Love that some people have started using the texting line to ask questions.
Yes.
That's very cool.
Yes.
And I'm going to segue out of the segue of that to Alan. Yep. We're a few weeks now into Predator being released when this is out for Mercury X, which is a big deal.
Correct.
And if I understand correctly, you just wrapped up your 99th preset for Mercury X that will be trickling out some more Mercury X preset packs here?
You're absolutely correct. We just launched preset pack 3 for both the LVX and Mercury X a few weeks ago. And, Paul and I both, that doesn't stop us. We just keep going, right? And with the emulation series, which is the unofficial whatever, but I'll take a delay pedal or a reverb pedal, and I'll start working on, can I get the LVX or Mercury X to do something like that? Sometimes it's a direct correlation. Like I want this specific sound from this specific pedal, and can I do it? And sometimes it is a inspiration, right? Like, so I'll take a pedal and, since we're talking about the Mercury X, the Dr. Scientist Atmosphere, it has 16 algorithms built into it, and it's got like 16 different presets. And I started just going and dialing in one by one and seeing what I could get. And some of them were direct, like, hey, I'm going to emulate this preset. And some of them are like, I'm going to make my own preset inspired by this sound. And I got to the end of it and I hit 99. And I'll tell you, the most exciting part was that I hit 99 at the exact time I finished, meaning I didn't have one left over. I wasn't going over one. It felt like that time when you finish reading a book and you actually close it. And it's like, that just got finished, right? You know what I mean? That's done.
Yes. Yeah. It's a very good completionist feeling. I like that. I'm excited to check out those Dr. Scientist ones too, because I like their pedals a lot. So I'm curious how the Merc X, I haven't even heard them yet as the time of this recording.
No, because it was like 11:30 last night. And I'm like, I almost stopped and I'm like, I have the energy. I barely have energy, but let's just keep going. Let's knock out the last 4. So. Yeah. So
yeah, keep an eye out for some new Mercury X stuff. If you have one, or if you are interested in the Mercury X, there's a ton of presets already available, but we're gonna stock you full of treats here for the Halloween season.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and something with the Predator. Our good friend Sam Timmer, who we've kind of showcased a little bit on the podcast before with some music and some ideas for episodes that he had. He was very helpful with me this week in helping me create actually. Instead of just like individual presets through the sysx files, because of not having Predator in the past, creating actually a library where you just load that whole dang thing up at one time. So shout out to Sam once again, coming in clutch with the advice.
Yeah, great ideas.
Yeah,
great ideas. So I wanted to talk about this week, now that we've done the little plug for the Mercury X stuff, and I am excited too. I actually just opened up the Mercury X for the first time last night. Oh, did you? I didn't tell you this because I wanted it to be a surprise.
Okay.
But since I was like learning the LVX, which we talked about with Gina,
mm-hmm.
I have an LVX now. I feel like I know enough about it now that I was willing to try the Mercury X out. And it's really good.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Yeah. So you have.
So we'll talk more about that. I don't want to dive too deep on it because there's so much.
Yeah. No, you're totally right, and it might be one of those. It might be a good discussion sometime to talk through the similarities and differences between the two, because having extremely similar UI. And the functions are all the same in terms of how you create sounds, but the parameters are different, and and we can talk through that at some point.
Yeah, that feels like another episode or something, or maybe a video even. So,
there you go.
But I wanted to do. So we spend so much time on these episodes in boutique pedal world because it's the world we love and the world that we have embraced and have been immersed in for quite some time now. I wanted to do a little episode this week, just a little talk about budget pedals, and I'm gonna make a rule here for us because I feel like the word budget could be stretched because we love to do things like that. Little joke on stretching your budget there. I feel like we should cap this discussion on your favorite budget pedal under, I'm going to say $175, because there's a few Boss pedals that hit there.
Okay.
So 175 and below. What is your current favorite one you could see in that category? And what's your like classic one that maybe you like loved for a long time and maybe don't have on your board anymore, don't use anymore regularly?
Got it.
So I'm setting the parameters. I'm also telling the audience, I didn't tell Alan this beforehand, so he's going to have to think. So I might start. Is that accurate? Should I talk
That's
first?
fine. A couple follow-up questions just to help my brain process there. That price point, is that used or new?
Let's say new.
Okay.
To really have you think about it. So
okay.
I'll go first.
Man.
So my current favorite one, and one that I actually keep around and I just have always really enjoyed, is the TC Electronics Ditto.
Oh yeah, that looper.
Yeah, and I actually still have the first. I know there's been a few iterations of the Ditto. There's like a Ditto Plus. There's a Ditto X2. I think there's an X4 even with like the big box one.
Right.
I still just have the original Ditto, the one that I think still retails for like $99.
Okay.
I So I have, obviously, with the LVX and other pedals we mentioned, I have a few different loopers available to me. There's different ways I can loop, different ways I can affect the loop. But what I love about the Ditto, especially because it is just a simple one button format, is if you are just trying to write, and it is funny, I know I often see in forums and discussions with pedals, like sometimes pedals are a detriment to writing, because you're just noodling and trying new things. You don't actually make music, as kind of like a meme within this community we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
The Ditto is just such a great companion for actually writing music and riffs and like layering stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the best feature of it is how very, very easy it is to hold and undo when you mess up. That is honestly my favorite, because it's like one click to record, one click to dub back in, then you click back. If you mess up a layer, you just quickly hold it and it undoes the last thing you did.
Nice.
And then if you want to stop and erase everything, you just double tap and hold, and then it's done. And it's just such a simple UI. There's no screens. There's only literally one knob, which is your volume. It's the one that's stuck by me and I think I got mine originally for like $25 or something used,
my goodness,
like a while ago. Because I think I've seen them used for like 40, 35, 40, but I got mine. I've literally had this pedal since like 2012, I think.
Okay.
Maybe 13. And it does looping well. I've used it on different instruments even. Sometimes I'll set it up with like a piano if I'm doing like piano layering, which is a thing I'll do sometimes for short film ideas. So that's my current main squeeze of what I would consider a budget pedal.
Okay. Very cool.
So am I talking about the Ditto? Did you land on one?
Yeah. I got one.
Okay. I'm ready.
So my favorite budget pedal is the Montreal Assembly 2 Positive. It is a hotcake clone, but it is a stereo overdrive. It comes in, I believe they have it down at $85 right now, US dollars, new. And that's a little bit insane just from the standpoint of what it can do, because I use it as a stereo overdrive. I use it as a stereo leveler. Like if I have like, maybe I'm running a delay into it that might have different outputs on left and right. Like maybe I have the left side a little bit quieter and I want to level that out. I can do that on the 2 Positive. You can also turn it into a mono, like mono only, of course. You can turn it into a 2-channel, essentially 2 hotcakes, A and B, and you can just bounce back and forth. You can then also use it like as a utility. So I've used it as a mono in, stereo out. I've used it as a stereo in, mono out. All of that. And it sounds fantastic, even just as an overdrive. So that's what I have. That's mine.
That is a really good pull for that, because it is a boutique company that's a pedal that's not, $400 or something. So and it is pretty cool that it is a stereo overdrive. When you can start stereo that early in your signal chain, because there's a lot of overdrives, even the really expensive ones, are mono.
Right.
Just because that's kind of, traditionally what guitar players used, and B, usually that point in your signal is mono before you get to like stuff that starts spreading.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's unique from the standpoint of it's 2 separate channels that that can be independent of each other. So as a stereo overdrive, you can make, like I said, you can make one channel completely different. It's not a mono overdrive that then splits to dual mono, giving you the quote unquote stereo output. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like not an overdrive at all, but the UA Max that I kind of messed around with. It's a stereo comp or a compressor, but it mirrors left and right channel. So it's really a dual mono. It's got stereo ins and outs so that you can fit it anywhere you want in your stereo chain, but it doesn't let you do one comp on one side and one on the other. So this, with the 2 Positive, you can do different gain settings on either channel simultaneously. So that's what's pretty wild.
Yeah, that's a pretty good. I honestly, I'm looking at it right now. I haven't played with yours of that. You've talked about it a lot to me.
Yeah.
And I want to. Because I didn't realize all the things it could do. So now I'm okay. Now I might leave this conversation and buy one. So
or you can borrow mine. honestly, like
That
that's
yeah,
fine
maybe I'll
too.
borrow yours before I buy one.
We'll put it in the next shipment.
Yeah, the next back and forth.
Okay, so Paul and I live close enough to each other that we can see each other on occasion, but far enough away that swapping pedals back and forth is not a hey, drop that off, and we don't have a shared space. So there's literally there's a shipment on its way to you right now, Paul. It should come today. But while that's...
Yeah, I was going to ask you for tracking on that because I'm also waiting on the box to ship to someone else, which is very funny.
Right. Yeah, I'll get that to you in a second. But the ironic thing or the funny thing is, since I sent it to you yesterday, but I have now 3 pedals to get to you. In addition to that,
yeah, I feel like every time we see each other, I'm like, oh wait, hold on, something's coming tomorrow that I have to give to you. Yeah, it's very fun. So, and also it is fun to sometimes boxes just arrive at my house. I didn't know were coming, and there's a pedal in it. It's like Christmas every day.
Well, okay,
so.
Maybe not every day. Let's not get terribly carried away.
There was a run there this summer where it was like, because we had traded so many things, and I forgot things we were trading around because it was like trade. I was like, oh yeah, I shipped this out, but I forgot something was coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd love to try the 2 positive.
You got it.
So let's flip to like classic budget that maybe was part of your arsenal. This was a hard choice for me, so I'm gonna like B with the same company and just use 2, which is a little bit bending my own rules. But 2 pedals. MXR.
All right.
The Distortion 3 and the Carbon Copy.
Oh, okay.
So the Carbon Copy was like, I think a lot of players' first introduction to a Bucket Brigade delay.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's now like a deluxe version with a tap tempo that I actually would love to try because the Carbon Copy does sound very good. And I'd love to try a tap tempo version because that's basically the only reason I moved away from it is because I started playing in environments more where I needed to be more precise with my delay.
Okay.
And I love, one of the things about the Carbon Copy is like how crazily you can get it to oscillate by moving the knobs around and just like have like these weird noises that are, just huge feedback noises from that pedal.
Right.
So Carbon Copy, we all know and love that one, I think. But the Distortion 3, because there's a lot of MXR pedals. There are a lot of MXR pedals.
Yeah.
And I feel like people don't even realize how many there are just because also they come and go from their lineup kind of frequently.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they still make the Distortion 3, but the Distortion 3 was one of those pedals that I think I either got it in a trade in like on Craigslist back in the day, or maybe I picked it up like at a shop or so. I have no idea how I got it. My friend Joe actually has the one I used to have because it ended up with him after many buy, sells, trade swaps. And it was one of those pedals that it's called a Distortion 3, but the distortion and output knob on it have a lot of range kind of interplaying with each other.
Okay.
And what I loved about the pedal is if you were stacking it on top of like another drive, you could like move the distortion down to almost 0 and it did like this kind of like harmonic singing overdrive on top of a stack.
Okay.
And then if you turn your distortion knob up, it gets to like gnarly rat territory and can just kind of like crunch a lot, wash things out in a really cool distorted way. And it's just like, I think it was like $100 new at the time. And if they still have it, it's probably around that same price point because MXR seems to be a company that stays very consistent with that stuff. So I'm just shouting out MXR in general with my classic. That was my classic pull across the board.
Nice.
So how about you?
Oh man. So classic. I mean, I'd have to say, just give me an unmodded Boss BD2.
Like just a normal BD2.
Normal BD2. I don't need, Robert Keeley to get his hands on it, although that is nice. I don't need Mike from Analog Man to get his hands on it, although that is nice. But just classic as it goes. BD2.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of the basis of a lot of the other drives you've liked too. So
yeah, well, and I think I think that is kind of the, it is the gateway drug of getting into boutique type effects, because I think we're all in this search for the best and the best tone and the best sound for ourselves. And so you start with these classics and then it's like, oh, I really like that signal. I like that circuit. I wonder, oh, so-and-so makes a mod that does this. Oh, that's really neat. Or so-and-so makes a version that's this. That's really neat. And you just kind of go down this rabbit hole and find yourself looking for the more and the more and the more in the world of boutique. So, but if you kind of wash it all away and start back from scratch, that's where we're at, you know?
Yeah, it's also cool, like something about that as well is it's neat that there's, especially Boss, but MXR like this as well, is some of these pedals have been in production since like the early 90s. I know the BD2 has been around since like 90, I want to say 94 or 5.
Okay.
And like virtually has been unchanged. It's just that pedal has been in production for, I mean, most of my life. That pedal has been available to buy. And has not really changed much. That's just it's a classic. It gets it done. I actually just looked it up while you were talking. The carbon copy actually only came out in 2008.
Okay,
which is crazy because I feel like it's been around for. I mean, 2008's over a decade ago now, but it still feels like one of those pedals that's been around forever.
Yeah.
But 2008, that seems newer, especially in reference to like Boss pedals, because they've been around since like 70s, 80s.
Right.
But it is cool to see, you know, you say gateway drug, it really has been for like generations of guitar pedal enthusiasts, just because those pedals have been there.
Right.
They've been available. They have not really changed, and they are the basis of on which upon, you know, we talked about it in I think it was one of our Overdrive episodes, but they're the basis upon what a lot of things are built. Is those circuits are just modified. You start with something and you modify it, and a lot of the BD2. The DS1's like one of the most moddable distortion circuits around.
Yeah.
But it is cool. It is cool to, I don't know. I wanted to talk about that today because we were like, yeah, let's have like a random mailbag episode of ideas in our heads and things that people have talked about with us recently. And I was like, let's just talk about classic pedals.
Yeah.
Let's talk about those classic budgets.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think, you know, on the budget side too, like it or love it for its own for their own reasons, but some of these brands like Joyo have come out with some pretty good pedals at an incredible price point. I know I messed around with a few of them. Like I had is it the King of Kings, which is their essentially King of Tone knockoff. There was some switching issues in terms of like there was some pops, but I was thinking about it and I wonder if maybe that was just a buffered bypass or not thing that I hadn't set to a different way. You know, sometimes like you get some interplay with bypass switching when you have multiple pedals in your signal chain, but for an always on overdrive, it's fantastic. So another Joyo that I actually really liked when I was messing around was their NASCAR delay. It's an analog delay. No idea where the name NASCAR fits into this, but it's, I mean, for $50 an analog delay, it's pretty fantastic. Obviously at that price point, you're not going to be getting a tap tempo. But even with some really expensive analog delays, you're not getting a tap tempo. So it's really kind of neither here nor there. Anyway, all that to say, Joyo, definitely worth checking out in terms of a good budget price point for some good quality stuff. And maybe that's just where you start, right? Like you start and say, hey, I want to try this circuit. I don't want to spend $250 on the boutique style of it. Let me start with something that's a little bit more, palatable to the wallet and see if it's even worth moving forward,
Yeah, I think that's, and as we talked about with Chris a few weeks ago with the, like starting with a multi-effects or something, starting with budget versions of pedals is a good way to just kind of discover if you like a sound, because you're not, investing $200 to $300 into something then and finding yourself, just completely upset that buyer's remorse. No one wants buyer's remorse.
Yeah. I can flip that around though to the opposite end and play devil's advocate for half a second on that.
Please do. I love when you do that. Let's do it.
So I totally agree. If you're unsure of if a pedal or a certain circuit is something that you will want, coming in low at a lower price point is a great way to do it. The flip side of it is if you know that a certain circuit, a certain pedal, and we can extend this out to amps, guitars, whatever the case may be. If you know that is what you want, don't settle for less. Even if that means you have a hole in your board for longer than you would really, really want. at the end of the day, let's say that you really want, I don't know, just because it's sitting here on my desk, you really want a Keeley Blues Disorder. And let's say you really want the germanium version that is kind of hard to find. Don't just get a Boss BD2 or a Marshall Bluesbreaker pedal to fill that void if you know for sure that what you want is something else. Save up your money and get the thing that you know that you want. Because
that is really good advice, because you don't want the Bandaid if you already know the cure.
Oh, look at you. Perfect.
Yeah.
I think it's the title of this episode. If you you don't want the Bandaid if you know the cure.
Yeah, there maybe.
That also could be the title of the new Cure album. I don't know.
No, that is a really good point, because I've also I haven't done it with pedals as much as I've done it with guitars. Yeah. When like I'll have my sight set on like a specific guitar where it has like a pickup configuration or like a neck profile that I really like, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just buy like this version of it that gives me half of those features.
Right.
And I did that for many years, where I really, really, really wanted an American Deluxe Telecaster with the S1 switch, which is now like my main guitar.
Sure.
But for many years, I just was like not willing to make the jump to do it. And would buy just like modified Mexican Telecasters, or like I'd mod my own guitar, and I would just always be like, I know I've played that, I know what it feels like, I know what it sounds like, and these are just like kind of imitations in a way that I just really need to just. So eventually, I got the one I have, but it is always kind of like one of those things where you think you're gonna solve it by like, but you'd be better served by just saving up a little bit more and just getting the thing you really know you want. So that is a good counterpoint to, if you don't know what you want, it's okay to start and just try a bunch of things. But if you do, don't get
the Bandaid.
Halfway thing.
Just
don't
go
do the
all the way.
To use a Breaking Bad thing, no half measures. So,
look at that.
On that note, I'm going to switch into a segment we have abandoned a little bit, and I do have a post for you as well. That's also related to kind of what we were just talking about directly.
All right, let's do it.
But I'm going to first ask. So you and I, as we were just saying, we have been in the world of boutique for a while. Is there anything on the budget market that you've been curious about? Now, I know you mentioned you tried Joyo, but is there anything else out there that you're like, I have an obviously high-end solution to the same thing, but I'd be curious about this if I was starting now? Is there anything out there you've seen like that? Because I have one, but I want to know for you.
I guess all I would just say is like more Joyo. I want to keep checking out more of their line. Honestly, that's what I would say.
Okay. That's a fair answer. I think I might have sent you this one, so this is maybe redundant for you, Alan, but I want to try that Sonic Cake Levitate pedal.
Okay.
It's like a very simple reverb and delay. It almost looks like a budget Avalanche run in some ways.
Oh, okay.
Except it is mono, so there's that. But it's like one side is reverb, and it's like reverb hold for trail, and then the other side is delay hold for tap.
Yeah.
And I feel like it might be a cool pedal.
Yeah, no, totally.
It seems like, again, I have countless reverbs and delays that I'm sure do this thing, but I'm like, I'm curious about it just because it didn't exist before.
Sure.
It's not something I got a chance to try, and was just curious about it.
No, I just pulled it up. It looks really cool.
Yeah, the artwork is actually pretty cool for a budget pedal too. Like the font on the Levitate is very like Charlie Brownie or something. I don't know how to describe it.
It's levitated.
Yes. All right. So I got a question. It's an Our Guitar Pedals post.
Got it.
So, can you all suggest a reverb solution for me? Hey all, I'm interested in building my first pedal board for an acoustic guitar. I'd like to have an always-on room reverb so as not to rely on the mixing board at my church, but then be able to quickly turn on a more ambient, lush, shimmery reverb for fingerpicking with a foot switch. I'd appreciate suggestions for both a pair of pedals to accomplish this, and also for a single one. I don't have a hard budget in mind, but not really interested in shelling out more than $300 for a pedal new or used. Thanks. What are you suggesting in this situation?
Honestly, I feel like the first thing that comes into my mind is I don't agree with the concept of controlling the room reverb when the front of house mixer it like has the room in front of them that they're doing. I think you end up muddying your signal a whole lot more. I get that, if it were me, I'd want to hear the room in my either the wedge or my ears if you're doing in-ears. And I think that's oftentimes the case. But it's funny, I was just listening to a podcast, Paul. I was going to send it to you because there was a front of house guy who has toured with like Joe Bonamassa, and he's done stuff for Oprah, but he's now doing a lot of House of Worship stuff, where he basically pled to all the guitar players to leave, like, unless it is like the shimmery or an actual statement effect of a reverb, leave the reverb to the front of house folks, because otherwise it gets really washy. So that said, I'm sorry, I just like totally slammed it, but I will answer the question though anyway. I would probably say if you can find yourself a Blue Sky V2, that would be the way to go, because it gives you the shimmer options, but it also gives you some of the other like more classic options there as well. That's what I would say.
That was going to be mine. I mean, my answer was a Blue Sky. I think you might be better. You might find an easier time finding, for that price range of $300, a used Blue Sky V1.
Well, yeah, true.
Well, you can definitely get a used Blue Sky V1 under that. If you can find a V2, it's a little bit better in a few different ways. But
what about a Boss RV6?
Yeah, because the toggle between is easier on this Blue Sky. I think. No, your favorite switch.
You're right.
So, I mean, in theory, an RV6 would cover the shimmery stuff, whereas you could have the front of house handle the room. I agree. I do agree with that sentiment. But if you were in a situation, I think the Blue Sky is the ultimate answer to, you have your like normal sound, and then your favorite switch is your like ambient finger picking sound that he's looking for.
Yep.
So
that brings
that they're looking for. I don't know
that. Can I move away from that for half a second, or segue into a statement or a question for you, Paul?
Yeah, go ahead.
That actually leads me to ask you a question about a potential guest on the podcast, and would it be a good idea to maybe get a front of house or monitor engineer to talk about how, you know, a guitarist's effects chain is, how that kind of translates to the audience?
Yes, because you and I have both experience on both sides of this as people who want to turn our amp up, as we talked about in a previous episode, but also acknowledging what actually happens to the real world audience. And I think having the perspective, especially because I know there are definitely people that listen to this who play live and maybe don't have a set front of house engineer.
Yeah.
You know, just understanding the perspective of all the things you do on your board and what they do to the room and what they do to the front of house engineer, I think would be really cool. I think it'd be a good conversation. So
cool. And then we can ask the question of who do front house engineers despise more, guitar players or drummers?
Yes, great question. It's probably, I want to know the answer to that. Yeah. So, all right. Well. Anyhow, we just teased a future potential episode for you all of having a front of house engineer. And you know, there's a few people in mind now, and I think I'd like to reach out to for that. Mm-hmm. I think our mutual friend from Kansas City is one I would maybe want to see if he'd be down, because it'd be an awesome conversation.
Yeah.
So I might reach out. I might reach out to him right after this.
Actually. Do it.
But well, thank you all for listening. We have more guests coming, some more cool conversations, and as always, keep collaborating, sending your ideas, and we'll be back next week.
All right. And if anybody wants to see all those presets we've got made, head over to the Patreon. They're all there for you. Peace.
Yes. Good plug. Bye.